Hey everyone, tonight we're going to slip quietly into a world woven with silk threads and centuries old secrets. You're lying there, maybe your feet are tucked under a blanket, and somewhere far away, in the soft glow of a Persian courtyard, a weaver dips his calloused fingers into a bowl of vibrant dye. He hums a tune older than the city walls themselves. You might think you could handle living a day in ancient Persia. Trust me, between the dust, the gossiping neighbors, and the backbreaking loom work, you'd last about half an afternoon. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And I'd love for you to share where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now turn off the lights, let the hum of your fan fill the room, and together, let's begin tonight's journey. You shift your mind's eye to Isfahan, sometime around the 17th century. The Safavid dynasty is at its peak, and Persian carpets have become more than just floor coverings. They're symbols of wealth, patience, and a kind of quiet rebellion against plain stone floors. You imagine your bare feet brushing across a fresh silk weave, warm hues of crimson and indigo, tiny knots tight enough to hide secrets from nosy visitors. One carpet might take a whole family a year to finish. Sometimes, the family goat ends up nibbling on a corner, creating a flaw that buyers centuries later would pay extra for, call it authentic charm. You duck inside a cramped weaving workshop. The air smells of wool grease and floral water sprinkled to keep the dust down. Girls crouch on reed mats, boys twist skeins of yarn, and the master weaver, wrinkles deep as river valleys, murmurs prayers as he ties the first knot of the day. Here's the truth. Persian carpet making was, and still is, a test of patience and eyesight. A single mistake could ruin a year's work. Some say the weavers intentionally knotted in tiny imperfections because only the divine could create true perfection. Whether that's humble devotion or a polite excuse for tired eyes, well, historians still debate it. Some evenings, the loom frames become a stage for whispered romances. A girl catches a boy's eye between rows of knotted silk, and for a heartbeat, the carpet's pattern holds a secret love letter in thread. Next time you see a Persian rug's repeating flower motif, wonder if a lonely heart knotted a single tulip just for fun. To keep themselves awake during night shifts, weavers sometimes chewed raw tea leaves or sang under their breath. The hum of old Persian lullabies floats through your imagination now. Can you hear it? It's soft enough that you might just drift away, but stay with me, because there's more. In a corner, an apprentice tries to copy the master's pattern without peeking at the sketch. This was the ultimate test. Could he hold the design in his mind, line after line, day after day? If he failed, he might be demoted to carding wool, or worse, boiling dye. And trust me, boiling indigo leaves you with stained hands for weeks. A fun fact to tuck under your pillow tonight. The Persian city of Kashan claims to be the birthplace of the finest silk carpets. Merchants crossed deserts just to brag they owned one. Some say an entire royal dowry once fit into a single rug. Jewels, coins, maybe a love note or two, all wrapped up and carried across dunes on a camel's back. So while you lie there, picture that camel plodding under moonlight, soft hooves kicking up sand that settles again long after everyone's asleep. You're still here, drifting halfway between your soft pillow and a dusty Persian courtyard under the Safavid moon. Your mind wanders to the bustling bazaar, crammed with spices, copper pots, and of course, rows upon rows of rolled up carpets that hide not just dust, but the family stories of the people who wove them. Imagine stepping into that bazaar, the aroma of cardamom and roasted pistachios teasing your nose. You brush your hand along a pile of silk rugs, each knot as precise as a poet's secret. Don't sneeze. Those carpets are worth more than your donkey's saddle, and maybe even your uncle's orchard combined. One verified fact: Persian carpets weren't only home decor, some doubled as diplomatic gifts, buttering up sultans or foreign ambassadors. When words failed, a carpet whispered, "Look how patient and rich I am." According to some historians, when the Ottoman Turks saw the sheer finesse of Safavid carpets, they even tried to imitate them, though Persians argue, with a wink, that nobody ever quite matched the magic. There's an old anecdote you'd love. A nobleman once lost his entire estate in a gambling match over a single rug. Imagine explaining that to your spouse. "Honey, I bet the orchard, but look at these roses in the weave." Historians don't agree if it's entirely true, but it does illustrate how a Persian carpet was both a treasure and a trap for the boastful. Now, slip behind the stall into a weaving master's private workshop, reserved for royal commissions only. The door creaks shut behind you. Inside, the air hangs thick with the tang of dyed wool. A master reclines on a cushion, tea steaming in a copper cup, barking instructions to apprentices who sweat over frames taller than they are. One boy sneezes. The master glares. Every sneeze risks dropping a knot, breaking the precious symmetry. These designs aren't freehand doodles. They're coded patterns memorized from elders, passed down like family recipes. Some patterns mimic the Garden of Paradise: cypress trees, flowing streams, endless blossoms. So when you pray on the carpet, your knees touch heaven's blueprint. Of course, modern historians scratch their heads. Was that the real reason? Or did floral motifs simply hide errors better than geometric ones? A debate that might never settle, like that itch on your foot you can't scratch under the blanket. For the odd twist tonight, in some villages, cats were unofficial carpet inspectors. Families believed a cat curling up on a newly finished rug blessed it with coziness. If the cat refused, bad luck. Sell it quick or hide the flaw with extra embroidery. So tonight, as your own cat circles your feet, imagine it's judging your bedding's thread count. Another gentle chuckle for you. To keep patterns perfect, senior weavers sometimes tied a little bell to an apprentice's wrist. If the bell chimed too much, meaning the boy fidgeted or dozed, he'd get a flick of a willow branch. Be grateful your own bedtime routine doesn't come with a watchful elder and a twig. You linger a little longer near the loom, the slow clack-clack of the weft echoing like a heartbeat. The master squints, mutters a prayer to ward off moths, and sips his tea. Outside, the desert wind rattles the shutters, but inside this carpet will outlast them all, woven secrets and all. You haven't drifted off yet, have you? Good, because the night's loom still spins, and the tale of Persian carpets stretches longer than a merchant's promise at dawn. Picture yourself now sitting cross-legged beside an elderly craftswoman. Her fingers are thin but stronger than any warrior's grip. She pulls a red thread through a forest of knots, her eyes squinting under an oil lamp's flicker. Around her, young girls giggle softly, threading beads into each other's hair while their mothers murmur gossip about a neighbor's secret love affair. Some things never change, no matter the century. One undeniable fact: some of the world's oldest surviving carpets, like the famous Pazyryk carpet, unearthed in a Siberian tomb, prove that Persian weavers mastered their craft long before fancy royal workshops. That ancient carpet survived centuries of ice, and yet your socks barely last one winter. Makes you appreciate a few extra knots, doesn't it? Meanwhile, across Persia's vast trade routes, caravans groan under bales of rolled up masterpieces. A trader crossing the Zagros Mountains might lose half his herd to wolves or storms, but the carpets, wrapped tight in waxed linen, they made it, each one an ambassador for Persian taste in Italian palazzos and Ottoman pavilions. Now here's the strange bit. The dye recipes were guarded like royal secrets. One slip in a rival town might copy your signature crimson. So dye masters used coded songs, melodies only apprentices sworn to secrecy could hum while stirring vats of madder root and pomegranate rinds. Some historians swear these dye chants drifted down alleyways like bedtime lullabies for the whole village. Tonight, you might catch one of those ghostly tunes drifting past your window. If you do, it's probably just the wind, or your mind unspooling like silk under your warm blanket. Oh, and while we're teasing your sleepy smile, Persian traders were master hagglers. If you tried to buy a carpet and didn't get offered at least 3 cups of tea, you were doing it wrong. Bargaining wasn't about the price. It was a polite duel of patience and compliments. By the time you agreed, both of you swore you'd named your firstborn after each other. Next time you visit a rug shop, test this theory. Bring extra time and a very empty bladder. Scholars still argue whether Persian rugs were art for walls, prayers for the soul, or a clever form of portable wealth. Maybe all three, maybe something else entirely. Either way, you can't deny the truth hidden under your imaginary feet tonight. Each knot ties you closer to someone's dream for a softer, more beautiful world. Outside the workshop, dawn starts its slow crawl over dusty rooftops. But don't fret. Here, under your cozy covers, the loom hums on, and you're part of its hush. You're still wrapped in this woven dream, and tonight, the loom grows larger than any village workshop. Stretch your mind's legs. Step through the heavy wooden doors of a Safavid royal carpet atelier, hidden deep inside the palace walls of Isfahan. Here, under arches painted with turquoise and gold, the best weavers in the empire breathe life into threads meant for kings. You pause on cool marble tiles, peeking at the master weavers perched on cushions, surrounded by bowls of crushed cochineal, indigo bricks, and copper pots of steaming dye. A young scribe sits cross-legged nearby, recording every measurement on brittle parchment. One slip of his quill, and an entire month's work unravels. Talk about work stress. Makes your Monday meetings look like a picnic. Fact for your pillow tonight. The grandest carpets of the Safavid court often needed 100 hands. Some weavers tied the knots, others mixed dyes, or sketched elaborate garden patterns on parchment. Imagine all that teamwork, just so a sultan could walk barefoot over roses that never wilt. Now, Lean closer. You hear whispers because royal carpets weren't only for walking. Hidden beneath the pile, some say rebellious verses were woven in secret. A quiet protest by poets turned weavers who dared to hide poetry under a tyrant's feet. Historians disagree, of course. Some scoff at the idea, but others swear faded couplets still sleep under a few palace rugs, if only someone could decode them. Take a breath. The air in this room is sweet, with rosewater sprinkled on warp threads to keep them supple. You watch a woman carefully paint a design onto stretched cloth, her brush tip so fine it might take hours to finish a single blossom. Outside, city life hums with merchants and gossip, but inside these walls, time forgets to hurry. Between knots, the weavers trade tales. One says that the Persian Shah once gifted a carpet so big it covered an entire pavilion floor, so soft it felt like walking on spring clouds. It took more than a decade to make, and when it was done, rumor says the head weaver retired rich enough to buy a village or two. Lucky him. You catch a chuckle from a pair of apprentices. They're gossiping that the master keeps a spare cat hidden in a basket. If mice threaten the wool, out pops the sleepy guard, whiskers twitching, ready to pounce. Even the Shah's best guard dogs can't compete with a Persian carpet cat, silent, fluffy, and forever unpaid. Another truth woven through the centuries. These court workshops doubled as schools for orphans and widows. Learning to tie knots wasn't just a job. It was survival, respect, and a path to a dowry. More than one royal bride entered marriage with carpets she'd woven herself, each petal in the pattern a hidden wish for good fortune. Tonight, as you lie there, think about the weight of those hopes beneath your imaginary feet. Every thread, a whispered promise. Every color, a memory held tight against time's rough hands. Outside, the courtyard fountains trickle under moonlight, but in here the loom hums on, steady as your heartbeat, pulling you deeper into this soft rebellion of silk and secrets. You haven't slipped away yet. Good. Stay nestled there while your mind glides down a palace corridor lined with rugs so plush they hush your footsteps. A young attendant bows you through a cedar door carved with verses from old poets. Beyond it waits the royal showroom, a hidden treasury where the Shah invites only the worthiest eyes to admire his woven jewels. You stand at the threshold, taking in a sight that would make any merchant faint, rows of rolled carpets stacked like golden scrolls. Silk threads glimmer under lantern light. Some rugs are so fine that even candlelight dances on their surface like water under moonbeams. One proven fact for your sleepy brain. Persian kings often competed to outdo each other with absurdly lavish carpets. Shah Abbas I, the empire's showman, used giant carpets as propaganda tools. Look at this knot count. Surely my rule is blessed. Some historians believe these rugs quietly advertised royal stability when politics said otherwise. Tonight, a servant unrolls one before you. Your toes curl in its softness. It depicts a garden of eternal spring, pomegranates bursting open, nightingales perched on cypress boughs, streams trickling through woven blossoms. These motifs promised paradise beneath your feet, an earthly preview of the next world. Funny twist, some visitors, eager to flatter the Shah, pretended to weep upon stepping onto these rugs, an act so dramatic that local poets wrote mocking couplets about foreigners, crying into silk while plotting new taxes back home. Court records hint at more than one awkward slip, where tears stained a priceless weave. Lean closer, you'll find a secret. Under royal decree, a special class of weavers handled only these garden-themed masterpieces. They weren't allowed to weave mundane floor mats for common homes. Once initiated into the Garden Rug Guild, you nodded only paradise or nothing at all. Some say it was a privilege. Others whisper it was a gilded cage, tying knots until your eyesight faded. Scholars argue endlessly. Were garden rugs religious symbols or just luxury branding? Did they reflect mystical Sufi visions or practical marketing to Arab and European buyers? There's no final answer, only tangled theories tucked inside footnotes, dusty enough to make you sneeze in your sleep. Now, a small side tale for tonight's grin. Rumor has it, an Ottoman ambassador once smuggled a garden carpet home inside his camel's saddle packs, bragging it was just a picnic blanket. By the time his sultan found out, the camel and the ambassador had vanished somewhere in Anatolia. True or not, it's too amusing to fact check. You stretch out, feeling how your own blanket tonight is suddenly a poor cousin to these royal piles of silk and gold thread. But in a way, you're luckier. No Shah will summon you at dawn to inspect every knot for errors. Around you, the palace walls sigh with wind drifting off distant mountains. A water pipe bubbles somewhere in a hidden nook, sweet smoke carrying whispers of court gossip. But here, with your eyelids growing heavy, all that matters is this secret garden beneath your drifting thoughts. You're doing wonderfully, half here, half already dreaming, yet still drifting with me through these halls of silk and shadow. Take another slow breath. Picture yourself stepping beyond the royal showroom now, into a vault hidden under stone arches where the most valuable carpets slept, rolled tight like scrolls of ancient poetry. A single lantern sways overhead. Its flame flickers on threads so fine they once left European kings slack-jawed with envy. Fact for tonight's hush: many priceless carpets never touched a bare foot. They were displayed vertically on palace walls, living paintings of paradise. When ambassadors arrived, the Shah would gesture casually, "Look at my garden, woven by men humbler than the breeze." There's a quirk to amuse you. Some carpets doubled as emergency currency. When dynasties teetered near ruin, a single masterpiece could bribe an army, ransom a prince, or charm a rival sultan into a fragile truce. In modern words, they were the royal family's rainy day fund, but softer and more colorful than your average bank vault. Imagine now, a young royal treasurer sneaking into this vault at night. He unrolls a corner, counts the knots by candlelight, and whispers a prayer that moths haven't discovered his kingdom's secret savings account. Historians bicker over how many such rugs disappeared during palace coups. Some say entire fleets vanished into desert caravans, never to return. Maybe they still lie buried beneath lonely ruins, waiting for a lucky goat herder to stub his toe and become a millionaire overnight. You catch your reflection on a polished brass pot beside a loom. You, here in this vault, an invisible guest. You listen to a distant echo, the click of a wooden loom's beam, steady as a heartbeat. A weaver mutters a line of poetry to himself, maybe a lament about sore fingers or a lost love left behind in Kashan's rose gardens. Time drifts backward for you. Centuries before these royal vaults, nomadic tribes wove portable carpets, practical, sturdy, patterned with simple tribal marks. Those early weavers worked by firelight, hunched in goat hair tents that flapped like sails in the desert wind. The designs weren't just pretty, each tribe's symbols whispered who they were, where they roamed, and whom they'd trade with next spring. A sleepy fun fact: the word carpet comes partly from old Persian roots, meaning to pluck or to pull apart, hinting at the raw wool teased into yarn by patient fingers. So tonight, as you fidget under your modern blanket, remember you're tucked under a tradition thousands of years older than your mattress. For a final chuckle tonight, European traders sometimes misread carpet patterns upside down, ordering thousands more woven wrong because they liked the so-called exotic mistakes. The Persians, polite as always, took the gold and said nothing, an early lesson in the customer is always right, even when very wrong. Outside, a soft desert breeze rattles the palm fronds beyond the palace walls. But here, under your covers, you are safe within the hush of knots and secrets. Stay with this feeling, a hand-woven world cradling your thoughts until sleep pulls you gently inward. You're still awake with me, half floating in this quiet vault of secrets and silk. Let's take one last hidden passage before we leave this golden era behind, because the story of Persian carpets didn't end with sultans and royal vaults. No, these threads tangled themselves deep into the veins of world trade, greed, and accidental fame. Imagine this now. Caravans snake their way west through desert storms, camels groaning under bales of rugs so heavy they leave patterned imprints in the sand when the traders rest for the night. Some say Bedouins followed these threads by moonlight, reading them like maps. A romantic thought. Historians squabble about whether that's poetic myth or desert practicality. Here's a bedtime truth. European nobles in the Renaissance were so desperate for Persian carpets that they slapped them on dining tables instead of floors. Yes, your dinner plate, roast goose, and wine goblet all perched on an heirloom worth a king's ransom. These rich folks loved showing off so much that oil painters had to capture it. Look at any old Dutch still life painting, and you'll spy a fancy rug pretending to be a tablecloth. And the weird twist? Many of these nobles had no clue how to care for them. Servants scrubbed wine stains with vinegar and left priceless dyes to fade in the sun. Some rugs even became accidental burial shrouds, wrapped hastily around treasures during wartime retreats. Once, in Eastern Europe, villagers dug up a rug centuries later, perfectly preserved under mud. They sold it to a Parisian collector for the price of a good cow. Scholars still debate whether that cow or the carpet had the longer legacy. Now come closer. This last piece is just between you and me tonight. Despite centuries of invasions, looting, and even modern cheap imitations, authentic Persian carpet making never died. Villages clung to it through droughts and revolutions. Even when Western companies tried to industrialize the patterns, local masters snuck back to old methods, tying each knot the slow, stubborn way their grandmothers whispered to them. Modern historians argue about whether this was clever resistance or just economic necessity. Either way, each knot tied by hand today is a soft rebellion against machines that never sweat, never bled dye into their fingernails, never hide a lover's sigh between rows of silk. A quick grin before you drift. A Western tourist once bragged he could finish a rug in a week using modern tools. Local elders laughed so hard they offered him free tea forever if he proved it. He left with sunburn and no rug, but plenty of tea. Tonight, your own blanket might be machine-stitched polyester, but close your eyes for a moment. Feel under your back a garden that can't wither, rivers that don't dry, a soft echo of all those patient hands, telling you to rest. No rush, no rush at all. The vault doors close behind you now, locking up the Shah's secrets for a few centuries more. Outside, dawn begins to nibble at the desert's edge. Inside your room, your heartbeat slows to the rhythm of a loom you'll never see, but whose hush follows you home. You're still with me, brave dreamer. We've crossed through palace walls and dusty bazaars, but tonight's final hush brings us closer to the modern world, where the secrets of Persian carpets cling like invisible threads, no matter how far you travel. Picture this. It's the early 20th century, and foreign merchants with stiff collars and bowler hats sail into Persian ports with fat ledgers and fatter ambitions. They smell profit in every knot. Fact to tuck under your pillow: some European companies set up carpet factories right in Persian towns, luring weavers with steady pay, but enforcing tight deadlines and uniform patterns that drained some magic from old village designs. Lean closer, here's the twist. Many master weavers rebelled silently. While official patterns met foreign quotas, back home they whispered new designs to their sons and daughters, ensuring that local rugs kept their tribal quirks, unexpected color splashes, symbolic motifs of camels or hidden water wells, things an accountant in London could never quite control. Meanwhile, villagers held onto ancient dye secrets like passwords to paradise. Western chemical dyes flooded ports, but the real artists stuck to pomegranate rinds, walnut husks, or madder root boiled over smoky fires. A little earthy, a little unpredictable, just like life itself. Scholars still squabble over when exactly synthetic dyes replaced natural ones. Some swear pockets of Iran and Afghanistan keep the old recipes alive, tucked away behind clay courtyard walls. While you lie there, imagine a weaver's courtyard. Sunlight slants through grapevines. A hen clucks somewhere nearby, and a boy helps his mother rinse skeins in the river, laughing when his fingers turn crimson from crushed madder berries. Generations pass, but the river keeps its secrets, just like the weaver's loom keeps rhythm through revolutions and market crashes. A soft grin for your sleepy thoughts. In the 1960s, Persian carpets boomed in Western living rooms thanks to a craze for exotic chic. Young newlyweds in New York or London sipped cocktails atop centuries-old patterns, oblivious that under their fondue parties lay knots tied by grandmothers who had never seen a skyscraper. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy, think of this gentle truth. No machine, no matter how clever, can truly replace a weaver's patient heartbeat. That heartbeat echoes tonight in your own chest, calm and steady as you float deeper into the hush. Outside your window, the world hums with neon lights and electric fans. But under your blanket, an invisible garden blooms, pomegranates, cypress trees, and a whisper of river water cooling your dreams. You're nearly at the end of this journey, half a dreamer, half a traveler, gliding over centuries of knotted secrets. Don't stir yet. Let's slip a little deeper into the winding alleys of modern bazaars, where old ways linger behind neon signs and traffic horns. Picture yourself wandering a bazaar in Yazd or Tabriz, your sandals tapping on sun-warmed stone. Shopkeepers sit cross-legged on faded rugs, tea glasses balanced on battered brass trays. Each merchant promises you the finest carpet, made by his cousin, his grandmother, his entire proud lineage. One guarantees the knots were tied under a full moon for extra luck. True? Who cares? Half the joy is in the tale. A soft fact to cradle, many villagers today still believe a carpet carries the spirit of its maker. If the weaver was angry, the pattern might twist. If they were in love, maybe a bright stripe of rebellious red appears where no sketch showed it. Modern buyers shrug at these whispers, but step into an old family home, and you might hear an elder swear a rug once sang to her in her sleep. Historians? They file such stories under folk myth, but your heart knows better tonight. Listen now. Beneath the polite sales chatter hums a truth. The survival of Persian carpets owes as much to women as to sultans or merchants. In remote villages, when drought shriveled crops or politics turned cruel, mothers passed the loom down to daughters. A dowry could be woven on winter nights when lamps flickered and goats dozed near the hearth. One rug might feed a family through hard seasons, knotted resilience under sandstorms and broken promises. A little grin before you drift further. Some weavers say if you dream of dropping a knot, you wake up untangling your hair, muttering prayers to the goddess of patterns. Maybe tonight you'll dream the same. Just tell your pillow it's an honor. There's one last scholarly quarrel for your collection. Some academics argue that true Persian weaving is dying, squeezed by factories, cheap imports, and hurried lifestyles. But step into a back alley workshop, and you'll see a girl crouched before her loom, humming to herself, ignoring her buzzing phone. In that moment, history doesn't die. It nods and keeps tying knots. Now let your breath slow, feel your heartbeat settle into that ancient rhythm. Click, knot, hush, older than your troubles, softer than your blankets. Beyond your window, the world spins its digital webs, but under your covers you rest on a story too stubborn to vanish. You're almost there, your mind a soft loom of drifting thoughts, your breathing slow, wrapped in centuries of patient whispers. Let's step gently into this final garden of the Persian carpet's story, a place less about merchants and more about you here, floating on secrets that will outlive every modern rush. Imagine this. Somewhere in a mountain village, a grandmother ties her last row of knots. Her eyes are foggy, but her hands know the pattern by heart. She hums an old folk tune, her grandchild beside her mimicking her motions with clumsy little fingers. Outside, snow creeps along the rooftop. Inside, the loom hums like a lullaby only her family understands. Truth to cradle, some modern families still keep a small loom in a hidden corner, not for money, but for blessing. A tiny rug, never sold, passed down folded inside chests of cedar and clove. It appears at births, at weddings, sometimes beneath the feet of the dying, so that the soul's final step is onto a garden that never fades. Historians rarely write about these hush-hush rugs, too humble, too personal. But you, tonight, you know they exist, knotted tight into this quiet hour you and I share. Let's smile together. Tourists sometimes wander village markets, hoping for a magic carpet. The locals chuckle and sell them a pretty mat. But real magic isn't in flying carpets. It's in the slow, steady promise that no matter how cold the wind howls, someone somewhere still hums over a loom, dreaming soft gardens for strangers they'll never meet. Outside your window tonight, neon signs blink, trucks rumble, life chatters on. But beneath your blanket, you're protected by a pattern older than concrete or clocks. You lie on an invisible rose garden, paths winding through cypress shadows, each petal a gentle hush against the noisy world. And the last scholarly quarrel for your dreams. Some say machines will end this art for good. Others argue a human hand's knot is like a heartbeat, imperfection, and soul woven together. Who's right? Tonight you decide. Rest in knowing that each heartbeat inside you echoes that same ancient click and pull. Your thoughts are lighter now, your shoulders soft against your pillow. Let the loom inside you pause. Let the patterns drift behind your eyelids. Let this final garden keep you safe. Next, I'll guide you through a short, 300-word stretch of deep relaxation. Then, I'll whisper goodnight in our quiet hush. You've come so far, dear dreamer. Now let all the knots unwind. No more patterns to follow, no threads to count. Just the hush of your own breath, weaving a soft garden inside your chest. Take a slow inhale. Feel how your blanket settles, heavier, softer, like a silken rug spreading beneath you, carrying you deeper into warmth. Exhale gently. Let the edges of your thoughts blur, like the faint borders of a centuries-old carpet washed by time and love. Outside your window, the world sighs with distant engines, drifting echoes of laughter, perhaps a night bird whispering once before sleep. But here, in this quiet place, you hear only the loom's ghost, its hush matching the rise and fall of your chest, steady, timeless. Imagine warm sunlight filtering through grapevines, dancing on a stone courtyard. Imagine the scent of pomegranates, sweet and familiar, drifting through the air, calming the last restless corners of your mind. You are safe here, where knots are forgiven, mistakes are part of the pattern, and no rush ever interrupts the beauty being made. Let your shoulders sink heavier into your mattress. Let your jaw relax. Let your eyelids rest, like shutters drawn against dawn's first hint. No alarm clocks here, no shopkeepers calling your name, only the hum of old songs, the smile of a grandmother weaving under the stars, the faint rustle of silk threads promising, rest now, rest now, rest now. In this moment, you carry a secret garden under your ribs, a place no noise can reach. Breathe gently in that garden tonight. Dream kindly. Sleep slowly. Maybe someday you'll wake to new stories. But for now, sleep well. Hey everyone, tonight we're going to slip quietly through the felt flap of a Mongolian yurt and find out exactly what goes on behind those circular walls while the steppe winds howl outside. You probably wouldn't last more than 2 days here. Trust me, the yurt life is tougher than it looks, and no, Netflix doesn't deliver to the middle of nowhere. So before you get too cozy, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing who's drifting off in which corner of the world. Now turn off your lights, switch on a fan for a gentle hum, and let's begin tonight's journey. You open the flap of the jeer, what the locals call their portable round home, and step inside. It's surprisingly warm, given the brutal cold outside. The wooden lattice walls breathe slightly with the wind, and above you, the crown, or tuno, lets out the smoke from the stove at the heart of every yurt. This crown is more than just a chimney, it's a spiritual eye to the sky. Some families even cover it, only partially, believing an open crown connects them better with the spirits above. You sink down onto the felt rugs layered generously on the packed earth floor. The rugs themselves are masterpieces of survival, hand-felted wool, dense enough to keep out the cold seeping from the frozen ground. Mongolian families will spend weeks preparing these, rolling and pressing them with feet and stones until the wool mats together like a living blanket. You hear the crackle of dry dung burning in the stove. Yes, that's the main fuel, and you'd better get used to the smell. It's oddly comforting after a while. In fact, there's an old belief among some Mongol herders that the smoke carries away household sicknesses, purifying the air. The layout of the yurt is a tiny cosmos of order. To your left, the men's side, saddles, tools, maybe a horsewhip resting on a peg. To your right, the women's realm, pots, milk churns, and the place for making endless tea. Straight ahead, the family altar or photographs of ancestors, a quiet watch over every meal and whispered bedtime story. This division is so ingrained that stepping across the wrong side can cause a polite scandal, so mind your feet. In the far corner, you catch sight of a felt-wrapped chest. This unassuming box often holds treasures of family history, an heirloom silver bowl, wedding hats, or a few coins kept safe for emergencies. Historians still debate whether these family chests evolved from ancient nomadic treasure carts, or if they came later with trade caravans crossing from China. Outside, the steppe stretches to forever. Herds of shaggy yaks drift like fuzzy clouds across the snow-crusted grass. And yet, in here, the yurt is a bubble of warmth, chatter, and milk tea that never seems to run out. A passing detail, the average Mongolian drinks about 5 to 6 cups of salted milk tea daily, enough to pickle your taste buds if you're new to it. And somewhere in this drifting warmth, you might doze off, imagining the quiet rustle of felt above your head. You're part of a rhythm older than any city, walls you can fold up and move whenever the grass underfoot gets tired. Did you know? Some researchers argue whether the yurt design came straight from the Scythians, ancient steppe warriors who needed homes they could pack up at the sign of trouble. Others insist the Mongols perfected it all on their own, shaping felt and wood to tame a landscape that never sits still. You feel your eyelids droop a little as the wind outside hums against the felt, a lullaby sung by the endless plain itself. You shift your weight slightly on the layered rugs, feeling the springy give beneath your knees. Every inch of this yurt is a quiet rebellion against the brutal seasons outside. Summers can bake you like bread, winters can freeze your breath solid, but inside this woolly circle, generations have found a way to laugh, gossip, and nap through it all. At dawn, you'd be stirred awake by the soft snort of the family's horses tied just outside. Even in deep winter, these sturdy creatures graze on grass found by sweeping snow away with their strong muzzles. Mongolian horses are famously tough. They can outrun you even half-starved and unshod. In fact, Genghis Khan's empire rose on the back of these exact horses, tiny, shaggy, tireless. Some historians still squabble about whether selective breeding or sheer natural adaptation made these horses so famously unstoppable. Back inside, a bowl of fermented mare's milk, Irog might be handed to you before breakfast. It's fizzy, sour, and slightly alcoholic. Polite custom says you sip it slowly, though your foreign tongue might protest. Mongolians say the taste of Arag separates the real nomads from the tourists. You politely try to look enthusiastic. After all, refusing a bowl could earn you a reputation as soft as sheep's wool. In the corner, Grandma hums a tune older than the oldest map of this steppe. Her fingers twist threads of wool into rope, simple but vital. Every rope loop, every knot holds the yurt upright in howling storms. A loose rope is no joke. More than one traveler has spent a freezing night retying their roof in the dark because they didn't respect a grandmother's knots. Outside, children play a game called shagai with sheep ankle bones. They flick and throw the tiny bones in ways that would make a Vegas dealer jealous. Winning means luck will follow you into adulthood, plus bragging rights to tease your cousins mercilessly. Some researchers still argue whether this bone game has a shamanic root or if it's just a clever way to pass long nights by the fire. Speaking of fires, the stove at the heart of the yurt isn't just for warmth. It's a gossip magnet. Neighbors drop in without knocking, bringing stories, disputes, or a fresh batch of dumplings. Privacy is, well, not a thing here. Even newlyweds must learn to share the same small circle with siblings, grandparents, and the family goat that sneaks inside when the door flap loosens. You adjust your sitting position, leaning back on a rolled felt cushion. The smell of burning dung and steaming tea wraps around you like a thick blanket. Someone hands you a bowl of booze, steamed dumplings stuffed with mutton. Bite carefully. The hot juice inside is notorious for burning unsuspecting lips. Mongolians joke that a booze burn on your tongue is a rite of passage for guests. Meanwhile, in a tiny niche by the altar, an old man tells tales of a fox that outwitted a hunter and lived to boast about it. His voice rises and falls like the wind outside, sending you deeper into the soft fog of steppe dreams. A bit of trivia. Some scholars claim these fox tales preserve moral codes and clan histories disguised as bedtime entertainment. But ask a herder, and he'll shrug. It's just a good story, don't overthink it. As the fire pops and the wind sighs against the felt roof, you feel your modern worries fade. No inbox, no deadlines, just you, a circle of warmth, and the knowledge that if the wind gets too fierce, you can always roll up this home and find a calmer patch of grass tomorrow. Your eyes flutter. The yurt hums its lullaby, promising more secrets yet to come. Outside the yurt walls, the moon hangs low over the steppe, throwing a pale light across the grazing animals. Inside, your world is a warm bubble where time drifts like slow smoke. The stove flickers, casting dancing shadows on the wooden ribs overhead. You're starting to understand why nomads say a yurt is a living thing. It breathes with the wind, sighs with the smoke, and listens to every whispered secret. In one corner, a young mother rocks her baby in a simple cradle slung from the roof poles. This cradle is more than a bed. It's a portable sleep machine. She hums softly, and with each push, the cradle sways just enough to keep the little one dreaming. Fun fact, some anthropologists argue that this swinging style inspired later cradle designs across Eurasia. Others say that's a stretch, but it makes for a gentle bedtime thought, doesn't it? When morning comes, chores pile up fast. Milking mares is at the top of the list. You watch as a woman deftly ties a foal beside its mother to encourage her milk to flow, ancient wisdom passed down mouth to ear. A single family might milk dozens of mares in a day, storing the fresh yield in leather bags for fermenting. Over centuries, this practice turned the Mongols into skilled dairy nomads, with techniques that amazed early foreign explorers who expected nothing but raw meat and warriors. As you imagine the taste of arog again, tangy bubbles hitting the roof of your mouth, a playful puppy barrels into your leg. Yes, dogs are here too, more guard than pet. Mongolian herder dogs, often giant and suspicious, keep wolves at bay at night. A local joke says, "Fear the wolf, fear the herder's dog more." Scholars still debate whether these dogs descend from ancient Tibetan mastiffs or local wolf dog hybrids. Either way, they're loyal, loud, and likely to snarl at you before wagging a tail. You scratch behind the puppy's ear and glance at the seal and crown, the tuno, watching smoke curl lazily through the hole into the starry cold. This hole is often left open during feasts and ceremonies, so the spirits can come and go freely. During weddings, the bride circles the crown 3 times to seal her bond with the household spirit. Miss a circle, and older relatives will tease you mercilessly until you do it properly. A relative nudges you toward a platter of fried bread, bortsog, crispy, airy, and still warm from the stove. You break it apart, dipping the corner in salted tea because here, sugar is a luxury even today. You wonder how many wandering traders brought sugar cubes to the steppe in centuries past, trading sweetness for wool, salt, or horsehair ropes. Some say the earliest travelers along the Silk Road taught Mongols to sweeten tea. Others insist they preferred it salty all along, laughing at tourists who sprinkle in sugar out of habit. Outside, a distant song echoes, some young men herding sheep back toward the yurt cluster. Their voices float through the cold, mingling with the howl of a lone steppe fox. The song is half love ballad, half directions to keep the herd moving. You smile, half awake. People have sung sheep back home here, long before cities had streetlights. Your eyelids slip lower. You feel the warmth of shared breath, the soft hush of felt walls, the patient crackle of dung-fed fire. In this little round house, history lives and snoozes right beside you. And if you ever thought your apartment was cramped, imagine sleeping, eating, arguing, falling in love, and raising a dozen kids all inside this one room. Because for many families, that's exactly how it's always been. You take one last look at the crown window, the sky beyond turning ink black. The wind croons its ancient lullaby, and the yurt hums back like a sleepy giant. Sleep comes easy here, wrapped in wool, history, and the promise that tomorrow the yurt might stand somewhere new, on fresh grass, beneath another endless sky. You wake slowly, or maybe you never really slept, just drifted with the flicker of the stove and the soft rise and fall of whispered voices around you. Morning in the yurt is a gentle chaos. The family moves as one living organism. Someone stokes the fire back to life. Another rolls up bedding to reclaim floor space. And somewhere in the flurry, a pot of tea appears as if by magic. Your hands wrap around a warm bowl of sute tsai, the salty milk tea that fuels every Mongolian sunrise. Steam tickles your nose, blending with the smoky tang of burning dung. If you expect bacon and eggs, forget it. This is a land where protein roams on 4 legs, and the only thing crispy in the morning might be the frost on your boots. You sip, wondering how many generations have done exactly this, perched on felt rugs, trading sleepy nods while the step outside decides whether today is wind, sun, or both. One of the elders starts recounting an old story about how Genghis Khan once declared a single yurt the center of the world. Historians argue whether this was a literal yurt, his traveling command tent, or just a poetic way to remind followers that home was wherever the Khan's banner rose. Whichever version you pick, it's easy to see how this humble round house holds empires within its walls. Outside, the animals wait. You step through the flap into crisp morning air so cold your eyelashes threaten to freeze. Horses, goats, sheep, and a grumpy camel or two cluster together for warmth. You watch as a young boy, no older than 10, expertly tosses a rope to catch a horse. He swings onto its back without stirrups or saddle, riding bareback like it's nothing. If you tried, you'd probably be eating snow in 5 seconds flat. Don't take it personally. These kids learn to ride before they can spell their own names. A gust of wind makes you tuck your scarf closer to your chin. The land rolls endlessly in every direction. No fences, no roads, just soft hills and the tracks of animals and riders. Scholars still bicker over whether this vast openness made Mongolians uniquely adaptable warriors, or if the warrior image overshadows centuries of quiet herding and tea sipping. Maybe it's both. Back inside, you crouch beside the hearth again. A neighbor has arrived with news of a distant cousin's wedding. Weddings here can last days, sometimes weeks. Guests come and go, bringing gifts of food, wool, and whatever good stories they've picked up along the way. A traveling bard might drop by too, unrolling tales as rich as any Netflix miniseries. Some researchers wonder if this oral tradition preserved historical events more reliably than fragile parchment maps ever could. As you listen, someone hands you a strip of dried curds, arul. It looks innocent, like a candy, but your teeth quickly discover it's closer to chewing a block of chalky cheese. Locals swear arul toughens the jaw and the spirit. If you break a tooth, well, at least your dentist isn't far, assuming he visits this part of the steppe this year. You chew, politely nodding, as stories drift from hunting wolves to an uncle's misadventure with a runaway ox. Every tale is delivered with a sly grin and at least one wink. Here, gossip travels faster than any horse. After all, when your home is portable, your secrets are too. Outside again, you hear the faint strum of a Morin kur, the horsehead fiddle. Its 2 strings hum a tune that could melt the frost off your eyelashes. They say the instrument was inspired by a grieving herder who carved his lost horse's image on the neck, letting its spirit sing through the bow. Music and myth here twist together like threads of felt, practical, poetic, inseparable. You exhale, letting the tune and the cold fill your lungs. Life in a yurt is never silent, never still. It breathes with hooves, wind, fire, and laughter that leaks through felt walls like secrets meant for the steppe alone. Your shoulders drop a little lower. Maybe you wouldn't survive the winters, but right now, wrapped in stories and milk tea steam, you feel exactly where you should be. You ease back into the yurt's belly, ducking under the low door frame. Watch your head. Even seasoned guests bump their foreheads at least once. Inside, the air tastes of steaming stew and old wood smoke, a blend so ancient You swear your ancestors could smell it too. Lunch simmers in a battered pot, hearty mutton, a few wild onions, and dumplings thrown in for good measure. If you ask a local, they'll swear no two stews taste the same, even if the ingredients haven't changed for centuries. Some historians like to joke that Mongolian cuisine is one endless experiment in making boiled meat taste like heaven. Most travelers discover this truth. Simple food, eaten warm with chatter, fills more than just your stomach. A curious boy plops beside you, showing off a handmade toy, two carved sheep ankle bones tied with horsehair. He flicks them expertly so they spin in a blur, giggling when you try and fail to match him. This little pastime is ancient. Evidence of Shagai bones turns up in burial sites over 2,000 years old. Some academics argue the game teaches kids early lessons in luck, chance, and quick reflexes. Others suspect it's just a good excuse to keep kids quiet, while adults gossip about marriage prospects and lost goats. As you watch the bones dance, the elder beside you mentions how each yurt must face south by tradition. South brings warmth and luck. Facing another way risks inviting trouble from the wind spirits. You glance around, imagining generations arranging these felt huts just so, aligning family fortune with the sun's daily arc. It's a simple thing until you realize it shapes the whole layout of camps scattered like stars across the plains. You're offered more tea. Decline once, they insist again. Decline twice, and someone might discreetly refill your bowl anyway. Hospitality here is relentless. No visitor leaves hungry or thirsty, no matter how far they've come. An old saying drifts to mind. A guest is as sacred as the sky itself. Some anthropologists debate whether this fierce generosity stems from harsh nomadic conditions, rely on neighbors, or perish, or if it's simply a stubborn pride in never turning anyone away. Either way, your belly is now comfortably, permanently full. Later, a sudden ruckus near the herd outside pulls you back into the wind. A young boy, in a flurry of tiny boots and wool layers, chases a runaway lamb. The lamb, clearly unimpressed, darts through the snow while a barking dog joins the chaos. The older herders watch, amused, offering shouts of half advice and half teasing. If you squint, you can see how these daily flurries trained young Mongols to handle real trouble on the battlefield. Quick feet, sharper eyes, calm in chaos. Some historians still argue whether this daily training truly bred such legendary warriors, or if the Mongols' reputation grew taller each time it crossed foreign tongues. Back near the yurt, you run your fingers along the felt wall. It's thick but soft, stitched from countless sheep fleeces, beaten by hand and foot until it forms a seamless wrap against winter storms. You imagine generations of hands pressing, rolling, stomping, transforming raw wool into shelter, protection, and a symbol of a culture forever on the move. A grandmother calls everyone back inside as dusk threatens the horizon. You obey, stepping once more into the fragrant, humming belly of the yurt. Someone tucks a wool blanket around your shoulders without asking. The wind hisses outside, testing every rope and knot. But inside, the stories wrap tighter than the felt. And so, you sit, you sip, you listen to jokes about stubborn camels and proud horses. And somewhere in this swirl of ordinary magic, the world outside falls away, replaced by laughter, warmth, and a quiet promise. This round home will stand steady tonight, just as it has for centuries. The sky outside smell melts into deep ink as evening claims the step. Stars, thousands of them, scatter overhead in a raw, endless sweep. Through the crown window, you glimpse Orion's belt peeking down, like a curious hunter checking in on mortal campers. Inside, the yurt flickers with shadows cast by a fresh stack of dung fuel feeding the stove. There's a hush between stories, a rare silence broken only by the gentle crackle of fire and the soft creak of wooden poles shifting slightly with the wind's push. It's the kind of quiet that makes your modern brain itch for a phone to scroll. But here, you surrender. A youth strum a moraine cour again, fingers coaxing a low, mournful tune that rises and dips like the rolling hills beyond these walls. Legend says the first horsehead fiddle was born of heartbreak. A herder mourning a lost steed carved its likeness to keep the animal's spirit alive. Some historians question whether this tale has roots in older Turkic or Siberian stringed instruments. But no one disputes how, once heard, its voice stays with you, half horse's whinny, half human sob. Your eyelids flutter, but the aroma of freshly fried dough pulls you back. Someone is making kushur, crescent-shaped meat pies crisped on a flat iron pan. Each sizzle cracks the sleepy mood for a moment. You reach for one, blow gently on the hot edge, and bite through the flaky, greasy crust. Meat juice trickles down your chin. Locals chuckle. It's impossible to eat these neatly. You mop up with a ragged piece of felt that might have cleaned a saddle yesterday. Hygiene on the step is practical, not squeamish. Outside, a dog barks a warning, a lone wolf sniffing too close to the herd. A young man slips out, bow slung over his shoulder, a reminder that life here, under these stars, never fully uncoils. Some researchers argue whether constant vigilance hardened the Mongols into the conquerors Europe still tells scary bedtime stories about. Or maybe it's simpler. Survival teaches sharp eyes and quicker reflexes, whether for wolves or warring neighbors. Back inside, your seat shifts as someone makes room for an elder to sit near the fire. She holds a sheep ankle bone in one hand and a cup of tea in the other, spinning both like small worlds. She mutters fortunes under her breath. Bone divination, they say, can read tomorrow's weather, a neighbor's betrayal, or your chance of marrying well. Skeptical tourists scoff, but more than one herder still consults the bones before moving a herd across the snowy expanse. You stifle a yawn behind your palm, warmth pooling behind your eyes. Someone asks if you'd like a mattress rolled out, a polite joke, because a guest never rolls their own bedding here. Instead, an older cousin unrolls a thick felt pad, beats the dust out with a lazy flap, and gestures for you to lie down by the stove's glow. A final fact drifts through your mind as you settle in. Some scholars insist the circular shape of the yurt is more than practical. It reflects a worldview where life flows in cycles, with no sharp corners to trap bad spirits. Maybe so. Or maybe it just makes packing up easier when the grass runs thin. You close your eyes. The hum of steppe life seeps into your bones. The lullaby of wind tugging the felt roof, the soft gossip of flames, the gentle snore of a nearby uncle who has predictably claimed the warmest spot. Tonight, in this circle of warmth and ancient wisdom, the wild steppe waits patiently outside, and you, a lucky outsider for a fleeting moment, belong exactly here, cradled by history, guarded by wool walls, and sung to sleep by the endless hush of Mongolia's open heart. When dawn comes, it doesn't so much arrive as it seeps in, like thin milk through felt seams. You open your eyes to a muted glow peeking through the crown window overhead. Around you, the family stirs. Someone coughs. A child giggles. The old uncle snores on, wrapped tight in layers of wool, refusing to surrender his warm corner to the chill of early morning. You sit up slowly, blinking at the hush. Outside, hooves drum softly against frozen grass. Inside, the stove sighs its last embers before someone crouches to feed it new fuel, handfuls of dried dung added with practiced, gentle taps. The smell curls up familiar now, a sleepy comfort rather than a shock. Breakfast bubbles on the hearth, more milk tea, a porridge thick with millet or barley, maybe flecks of dried berries if luck has come to visit. You cradle the bowl in your cold hands. The heat seeps into your palms, each sip reminding you that in a world with no walls beyond this circle, warmth is gold. Today is moving day. Not for you, though you half wish you could shrink your whole life down to what fits on the back of a camel. For the family, it's time to shift camp to fresher pastures. This is no casual picnic. It's a ritual of rope, sweat, and stubborn animals. Entire households, from wooden chests to toddler toys, vanish from one hillside and appear on another by sunset. Outside, the men coil thick horsehair ropes, binding them around wooden carts. The women fold rugs and roll felt walls tight, pressing them flat with feet and knees. You watch as the skeleton of the yurt reveals itself. Wooden lattice walls unhooked one by one, the roof poles stacked like a giant porcupine's quills. An elder mutters that the design hasn't changed in centuries because it doesn't need to. Scholars still debate which steppe tribe perfected the art of a collapsible home first, the Scythians, the Huns, or the early Mongols. Regardless, you stand in the wind, witnessing living architecture collapse gracefully, like an origami tent packed back into memory. A rogue goat tries to sneak into a pile of folded rugs, quickly chased off by a laughing boy. Even in the middle of organized chaos, mischief bubbles up. There's an old joke among herders. If your goats aren't plotting an escape, check if they're breathing. Nearby, a teen girl coaxes a camel to its knees, loading it patiently with a stack of felt walls, twice her height. Camels here are like furry trucks with attitude, loyal, hardworking, and always seconds away from spitting on anyone who underestimates them. No expedition across the Mongolian plains has succeeded without these grumpy giants carrying burdens with a dignity that horses can only envy. The wind picks up, chasing your breath away in puffs of white steam. You pull your borrowed coat tighter, wondering at the simple genius, a whole home disassembled in hours, carried by animals who remember this trail better than any GPS, and rebuilt when the grass says, yes, here, rest here. You glance back at where the yurt stood, now just a circle on the ground, marked by trampled earth and faint warmth still trapped in the soil. It's like watching a snail slip out of its shell, gliding silently to a new patch of the world. And you think, maybe freedom isn't wide roads or unlocked doors. Maybe it's knowing that home can follow you anywhere, stitched in felt, whispered in songs, rising again wherever the horizon bends kindest. The caravan nudges forward, dogs bark, herders shout softly to restless animals, and laughter floats on the cold wind. You breathe it all in, this moving, murmuring dance older than empires, yet alive in the hum of every hoofbeat today. You trail behind the moving caravan, your boots crunching softly over frosty grass that bends beneath the weight of hooves and wheels. A few loose sheep wander at the edges, nibbling at tufts they'll soon leave behind. Somewhere ahead, a herder whistles, a high, rolling note that turns the sheep back without fuss. It's a language of sound and motion, older than written words. Beside you, an older woman hums a traveling song under her breath. The tune rises and dips like the gentle hills all around, reminding everyone, humans, dogs, camels, even the sky above, that they are part of this shifting flow. Music makes movement lighter, gossip sweeter, and long miles friendlier. Some linguists argue these folk songs carry hidden maps, coded directions to waterholes and safe valleys. Locals just say, the song knows where we're going, so trust it. You watch as the caravan snakes over a ridge. It's not as chaotic as it seems. Animals arranged by temperament, loads balanced to prevent a sudden topple when a stubborn yak decides to test your patience. Young boys ride on the flanks, guiding stragglers back into the fold with practiced clicks of the tongue. One lad beams at you, daring you to keep up with his racing pony. Spoiler, you lose badly. As the sun lifts higher, warming the chilled air, the families call for a mid-journey break. The packs are dropped in a loose circle. Animals kneel or graze at freedom's edge. Within minutes, a small hearth flickers to life again. Dry twigs and dung stacked neatly, sparked by a flint strike. Milk tea bubbles once more, because on the step, no moment is too ordinary for a fresh cup. You sit cross-legged, savoring the steam rising from your bowl. The elder beside you points toward a cluster of distant hills, explaining how families choose new camp spots. Water must be near, the grass sweet and thick, the wind not too fierce. Some historians claim that this nomadic wisdom shaped diplomatic negotiations for centuries, alliances sealed with the promise of sharing pastures rather than castles. But others scoff, saying Mongols simply knew where the grass was greener and let the rest fall into place. Your belly rumbles at the sight of a makeshift picnic, scraps of boiled mutton, slices of hard cheese, and leftover dumplings from the last meal. Sharing is silent here. No fancy plates, no polite refusals. A hand reaches out, offering a bite. You accept, chewing slowly, tasting salt and fat, the honest flavors of life where abundance means enough to feed every mouth for today. Nearby, a young girl ties a bright cloth around her braid, laughing as her mother scolds her for wasting precious dye. That pop of red against the earthy furs and muted felt is more than decoration. It's a symbol of joy, hope, and a splash of stubborn beauty in a harsh world. Anthropologists still debate whether these small displays of color were status symbols or simply a quiet rebellion against winter's gray. As the break winds down, people rise in unison, like reeds swaying back to attention. Ropes tighten around packs, camels groan good-natured complaints, and children are scooped up onto horses before they wander too far. You stand too, stretching your cramped knees, feeling the tug of the endless step calling you forward. For a fleeting second, you catch your reflection in a polished brass bowl, cheeks flushed, hair wild, eyes soft with the kind of fatigue that feels good in your bones. You, the outsider, have moved with the camp, felt the earth shift beneath the mobile roof, tasted life without fixed walls. Ahead, the new campsite awaits. Just another patch of grass for tonight, another circle of warmth stitched by felt and firelight. But you realize that to these families, it's not just another stop, it's a promise. No matter how far they drift, home is not a place but a practice, a dance between wind, wool, and the will to belong nowhere and everywhere all at once. You smile into the rising wind and take your place among the moving circle, letting the journey write itself into your bones. By the time the caravan crests the final hill, the sun tilts lazily toward the western rim of the sky. Long shadows reach across the grass, stretching from wool-wrapped bundles to four-legged silhouettes standing patient and unbothered. Somewhere behind you, the trail you just walked dissolves back into wind and memory. No footprints last long on this restless earth. At the chosen campsite, the dance begins again. With a few sharp calls and quick gestures, families peel off into small clusters, each claiming a patch that feels right, near a water trickle shielded by a slope, close enough to gossip but far enough to keep goats out of neighbors' stew. You stand there for a moment, watching what seems like chaos to your city eyes, but hums with perfect familiarity to everyone else. Bundles are unrolled. The crown ring, that beloved tuno, is lifted high like a blessing returning to the sky. Lattice walls expand outward with a creak. Roof poles slot into their familiar sockets. Felt wraps the bones like muscle, pulled back over a sturdy frame. A child runs circles around the rising dome, squealing when an aunt scoops him up mid-lap. Laughter punctures the evening hush. A fresh fire sputters alive. Some historians insist this mobile architecture shaped more than just comfort. It dictated how Mongols understood loyalty and territory, fluid, adaptable, expanding or shrinking with seasons and needs. Others argue this over-romanticizes practicality. Sometimes a portable roof is just a smart response to stubborn grass and stubborn weather. You help tug a felt flap tight, fingers going numb as the wind teases your sleeves. An old man claps you on the back, muttering approval in a language that needs no translation. You did good. Eat now. Inside the reborn yurt, the stove cackles like an old friend reunited after a short break. Tea finds its way to your hands. How could it not? Someone unwraps leftover bortsog, offering you the last crisp piece before the children snatch it all. The walls around you are still soft, still breathing. But now you understand, it's not just felt, it's promise, memory, and a dare to the wind that this circle stands firm tonight. Outside, animals settle into the familiar rhythm of night grazing. A herder whistles from the dark, and a dog answers with a low bark. The stars pour themselves over the steppe again. No streetlights to compete, no rooftops to hide them. A final note of song drifts from somewhere near the herd. You can't see who sings, but the tune threads itself through the open crown window, stitching your heartbeat to theirs. The tune might be a prayer, might be a joke about stubborn yaks, might be both. You lean back against a cushion, feeling the day's trail humming in your calves and shoulders. Around you, the family settles one by one, layering blankets, trading last murmurs, letting sleep come the way it always does here, gentle, communal, unafraid. Your thoughts drift. What would it be like if you could fold your worries as easily as these walls? Pack them tight, sling them over a camel, and promise yourself that tomorrow's pasture might be kinder than today's? A soft giggle from the corner pulls you back, Two cousins whispering secrets they hope the old ones won't hear. Your eyes blur. The fire sighs low. The felt breathes its steady hush. And now you are one heartbeat among many under this traveling roof, a small, living promise that warmth can follow you anywhere so long as you trust the rope, the felt, and the open sky above. Let your last thought be simple. Tomorrow the herd moves on. So will the wind, so will the stories. And you'll carry this round room inside you wherever you sleep next. Now, drift. Let the step hush your mind. Let the stove warm your bones. Let the crown window guard your dreams. You've walked the old path tonight, and it leads always gently to rest. Breathe just as the yurt breathes. Let your chest rise and fall, slow and soft, like the flap of felt catching the night breeze. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the edge of each thought blur into a kind hum. You've done enough today. There is nothing more to unpack, nothing more to fold away. Listen in your mind to the creak of wood settling into its shape, the crackle of small embers finding their last warmth, the distant shuffle of hooves drifting like a lullaby far from your door. Imagine the weight of a thick wool blanket across your legs, a comfort older than your worries.